Now, I noticed you've also been doing some videos on setting up altars, which are fabulous. So if anybody's interested in how to set up altars, just altars in general, really, but you've been doing it for some specific deities as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
I'm assuming an altar is an important part of your practice.
Yeah, it's a creating sacred space. So often it gives a focus, So again, if you'd have the mind monkeys, like you said, I love that word. It gives you like maybe somewhere for the monkeys to play.
Monkey playground.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of giving you like a direction, and as you're thinking about it and the things that you can add on it, it's leading you to contemplation, perhaps, of the themes. So I think the most recent one I put up was about Magna Mater, the Great Mother. So by putting like the lions on her altar, you're thinking, oh, why lions? What does that mean for me? What do they represent for me and her? Like, why is she connected to that? And then it can help you with the imagery as well. So if you were to journey with her, it might help you to visualize the lions. But it just gives you that space, where the rest of the house may be busy, it might be full of other people's stuff or, life stuff. It gives you that place where you can come back to. So, the ancient Romans had this in their household. They would have a household altar that was in the center of their house, and there they would honor the ancestors. They would honor, the spirits of that house as well. And it was there constantly. The fire was always burning, and they would have it somewhere where you would pass, during the day, so that you could just kind of be reminded when you saw it of who you were honoring and who you were kind of with, I suppose.
And now I learned, this is my confession, I learned about the Roman household altar from an episode of Doctor Who. There was a Pompeii episode and they had a household altar and they made an offering to it as they went in the house. And I thought, that's interesting. I'm going to go and research that. Yeah, so that was with thanks to Doctor Who for that. I'm not proud.
What though, on a side note, like I'm just going off on a tangent again, like it's one of these things that I thought about. Can you imagine in like 4,000 years that all that's left is like little bits of like what's most popular for us? They'll think Doctor Who was like our Jupiter, like our main deity, and they'll be like, oh, this McDonald's is the temple they all went to,
no, that's a horrible thought. That's a horrible thought. I'm happy with the Doctor Who, but not so happy with McDonald's as a temple. But you're right, because I think so much of history is taken from the archaeological evidence or little bits that are written down. We've pieced it together, and it's not necessarily the right pieces of the jigsaw in the right place, is it? If we did have a TARDIS, we could go back and see what actually happened. I think we might have to rewrite quite a lot of it.
Yeah, we're just getting a tiny window, aren't we, into the past? But yeah, really want to. Maybe we get a Moonbook's TARDIS. I would love that.
Yeah, come on, universe, we'd like TARDIS. Thank you very much. Now, moving, sort of spreading out from the altar, are there any particular magical tools you... I'm going to the sonic screwdriver now. This is where my brain goes. Are there any specific magical tools that you work with, or do you not?
For me, my primary three things that I use are elderflower essences. I also use... I don't know how you'd put it, but I express myself through words and song and music.
Okay, yeah.
So my tool would is just expression, I suppose. That I'm not kind of a sit quietly and think. Even when I'm sitting quietly and think, I'll just start singing. Or like, there's specific songs. Again, I'll have songs that kind of match my books or a situation or a day. All my deities have got playlists that I create. Like,
I love that. I'm making notes of all these brilliant ideas.
I was inspired by like when I was a teenager, you probably know of her. I was inspired by an author called Elizabeth Chadwick who does medieval novels. And I remember reading one of her blogs that said that for each of like her characters in her book, they have a song, or the situations in the book have a song. Like I remember like her saying about like William Marshall's song, and it was like so sexy, and I was like, oh yes. And I was really inspired by that, and I remembered that. And then I remember thinking about it as I came to kind of work with deities. Like, I would hear a song and I'd be like, oh, this is such the themes of like so and so, or this makes me think. So I'd put it into a Spotify playlist, for them. And then I can then go to that playlist if I want to connect with them, or if I want my students to connect to them, and it helps them to understand the themes and the energy, like the feel of that deity. Like I find with like Fenrir, who I work with quite a lot, like he, really it's heavy metal, like that.
Yes, that works.
That power. And it's like that with all of them. They all have like their instruments or perhaps their feel of music. And then that brings in, I use dance as well as my tool as a primary tool as well to connect, to move things, to heal, to find my intuition, to get out of thinking brain. Use it for everything and anything.
I think music it's very underrated in spiritual practice. I do work with it a lot in ritual and in spell work because it does evoke emotions and memories and feelings, doesn't it? So that makes perfect sense. It does make perfect. I love that they've got playlists. Mine would probably all be from the 80s, but I love it. Brilliant idea. That is because it inspires, doesn't it? And it does. It's opening different senses as well, isn't it, I think? Has your practice changed over time then? Have you things you used to do you no longer do? Or has it just kept evolving? Or is there a core that's kind of stayed the same?
Yeah, I think I have those central things, which is, nature, music, dance and journaling. I think it does change as to what I need. So there'll be certain points, like say in the winter, I tend to more journaling because I'm more internal. And then I can feel myself in spring. I suddenly want to dance again. I can feel myself almost emerging, and the dance helps me to emerge. And then, perhaps the singing happens more in the summer, when I'm out with the birds and I'm singing back to them and they run away horrified or whatever. But it evolves more on a seasonal basis and how I'm feeling as well, because if something's happening in me that's really tender and vulnerable, often it might come out like emotion, like it comes out as noises or something, but I don't want to move because I want to hold it. And the flower essences, again, they will change with which ones I need when. Sometimes I don't want the essence. Sometimes I want to actually be with a physical tree and touch and hold the tree rather than work with its essence. So again, it adapts like that. So I think it's changing all the time, and it looks different one week to the next, to be honest.
But that's seasons in general, isn't it? I think that is about having that connection to Mother Nature, isn't it? She changes every day. So it is about having that connection to it and noticing what's going on around you.
Yeah, and we have our own seasons as well. So like I've done less of kind of the dance this year just because my health hasn't allowed it. And the seasons of us, like you might find a tool that you love for a certain period of time when you're going through a certain thing or you're working with a specific deity. You may never use that tool again. It might be specific to that time, a place or thing. And you might move on to something different. So again, it's having that allowance and just being curious, I think, just exploring, finding what works for you, and just having allowance that might change. In fact, it probably will change, over time as you grow and you expand and you learn different things.